will health systems have websites in 5 years?
Yes, I think they'll have websites. I don't think websites are going to be dead.
I agree.
Okay.
There seems to be a point at which people stop adopting new technology. And so there's a cohort of people that have stopped adopting new technology, but have adopted the website. And until that group is no longer, you're going to have a website.
New choices, new players, new models of care. You know consumer first healthcare is everywhere. For us to build the future, to see what's new, we gotta look at the world from a different point of view. Consumer innovation ain't going away. I say it's here to stay. Today it leads the way. We gotta drop the silos. We're all the same team. Experience, business, tech, and marketing. So join us now. Join the revolution. Consumer first health is the evolution. Status quo or like status no. Yeah, this is the healthcare rap. Yo, come on, let's go.
Hey, welcome back to the leading podcast about consumer-centered health. We highlight innovators who are bridging the gap between sick care and well care, influencing change in the industry, and empowering consumers with cool new ways to engage in their health and wellness. We're also having some fun along the way. I'm Jared Johnson, and this is episode 473. Today, we have the flavor of the week about GoodRx disrupting the GLP-1 marketplace. What could be the ripple effects of their new low-price offerings on consumer health behaviors? And where else might GoodRx take their formula of telehealth and discount prescriptions? I'll talk about that. Then Scott Schuster and Therese Lockemy join me for my latest Candid conversation about careers and leadership at the intersection of healthcare, marketing, and technology. Even in one of the industry's most challenging times, we find encouragement and acknowledgement as we get very real about how to navigate unexpected twists and turns. It's time for an extra dose of awesomeness, y'all. Are you ready? Let's go.
Flavor of the week.
The GLP-1 price wars continue to rewrite what access to consumer health looks like. On November 17th, GoodRx made one of the boldest plays yet, a $39 a month weight loss telemedicine subscription paired with what they're calling an industry-leading introductory cash price of $199 a month for Ozempic and Wegovy. There are 3 reasons why this is a big deal. First, they're integrating 2 offerings. From day one, GoodRx has controlled the consumer journey at the pharmacy checkout, and now they're connecting that power directly to telemedicine. With one subscription, consumers can go from I'm curious about GLP-1s to clinical evaluation to prescription to discounted access in a way that few brands can replicate. Second, a $199 intro price rewrites consumer psychology. Whether or not it's sustainable long-term, it sets a new anchor point, and those matter. They send a signal to millions of consumers who have been priced out that they might actually be able to try something. Third, they're normalizing subscription-based weight loss care. They're not the only ones doing that, of course, but we're watching weight loss shift from episodic treatment to ongoing membership. A $39 subscription is a direct challenge to the $100 to $150 monthly memberships offered by many telehealth clinics. And from where I'm standing, competing on consumer simplicity and price is always a good bet. When I think about where else they could take this formula, I realize that every major digital health brand is trying to crack the code on GLP-1 affordability, retention, and outcomes. But GoodRx has something that most others don't. The combination of massive brand awareness, deep pharmacy relationships, a track record of consumer trust, and the infrastructure built for price transparency. And perhaps most importantly, millions of consumers who already treat GoodRx as part of their daily healthcare routine, so they don't have to build a new funnel. They're plugging weight loss into an existing one, and that's where the game changes. What's the consumer lens? Consumers care about, can I afford this? Is this legit? Will it work for me? How fast can I get it started? GoodRx is basically saying yes to all the above. That's the formula for consumer adoption in 2026 and beyond. The only question now is whether they can deliver a clinical and service experience that matches that convenience and price, because affordability might get consumers in the door, but it won't necessarily keep them there. And that's what we should all be paying attention to. Let's challenge the industry to adopt the formula of simplicity plus price in every aspect of healthcare, so everyday people can benefit from more products and services that will help them feel better. That's another way that we'll build the healthcare of tomorrow, and that's the flavor of the week. Hey y'all, I'm here with Israel Krush, founder of Hyro. Israel, what's an easy to understand example of how an AI agent can help consumers in their health journeys?
A simple section would be the fact that instead of enrolling into Medicaid and proving that you're eligible once a year, you need to do it once every 6 months. Patients don't know that. So we said, you know what, we're going to get ahead of that, and we're going to educate patients about some of those changes and try to get them re-enrolled or redetermine their enrollment into those programs programs to make sure that one, they're covered, and two, that the health system gets paid or reimbursed for those patients. So I think that's like a clear win-win where you create an AI agent that is proactively helping both patients and health systems with issues that they face and make, again, the journey a little less complicated.
Thanks, Israel. Visit hyro.ai for more information. That's HYRO.ai. And tell them you heard about it on Healthcare Wrap. All right, let's get into the flow, everybody. A few months ago, or even just a few weeks ago, actually, we released an episode with Chris Pace and Aaron Watkins, and we talked about careers in leadership and healthcare marketing and digital, and got to some really good points in the conversation. And besides the insights that they shared, it left me wanting more, and I couldn't wait to find other leaders and colleagues in the space who are willing to talk about some of the same topics. These topics aren't going away. The industry continues to be what it is, and the realities and the hope of what's coming are both kind of all mixed together, it feels like right now. So I want to welcome our guests today, Scott and Theresa. Just super excited to continue this conversation. Scott, we want to start with you, and then just a little bit about yourself. And we're going to get into just some of these topics around not just career journeys and transitions, but also the leadership lessons that we've learned along the way.
Well, thanks for having me on, Jared. So Scott Schuster, I have had a really windy career. I've done a lot of different things from investment banking. I've managed hair salons. I've worked in the coal mining industry. So I have had this really long, strange career. But about 15 years ago, I got into healthcare and really liked it. It was much more purpose-driven than a lot of the other industries that I had been involved with, and just tried to stick with it. And also thought it would be really stable to be in healthcare. And that turned out to be maybe not quite what I expected. And so anyway, I worked for Northwestern Medicine as both a consultant and as an employee for a number of years doing digital patient experience types things, websites and more. And then went over to the vendor side for my last couple of stints in the consulting and the software product space as well.
So Therese Lockemy, I'm founder and CEO of Interpath Digital. So I've spent 20 plus years in some realm of marketing, starting with even I consider customer service and working in a call center, an element of marketing. And I've spent 13 years in healthcare. Prior to starting Interpath Digital, I was at Mass General Brigham. Prior to that, I was at Johns Hopkins Medicine. So now I help health systems lead digital transformation. I really started Interpath Digital as part of kind of a personal, tower moment for myself. Hopefully tower moment makes, I'm kind of putting tarot cards in there. But anyway, I was doing the work of many people navigating leadership politics while also dealing with my son's epilepsy, a divorce. And I just reached a point where it didn't feel like I was aligned, didn't work anymore. So certainly didn't leave with the perfect plan, but I left with a commitment of kind of following my inner path, hence Interpath Digital, and really helping other organizations find their path through digital transformation. Because working in healthcare is maybe not the same, or maybe it is in some ways, as having a son that has epilepsy or a divorce. But as we know, it's pretty tough. It's hard.
Thanks for sharing, because this all is life. It's not just like a compartmentalized part of our life that we can just talk about by itself. It's all life. So yeah, all of this comes into play, where I think would be a great place to start. And again, it's kind of a continuation of the conversation from a previous episode, but just the thought of along the way, we've each had opportunities to evaluate new directions. And as we consider how to make that evaluation, I feel like, at least for me, the criteria has changed every time I've had an opportunity to say, something new's come across. It might be good for me, but I need to evaluate it in a different way. And that sometimes is a challenge to realize, for me at least, to know I should be able to easily decide if this opportunity is going to be a good thing for me or not. And to look back with 2020 hindsight and say, you didn't evaluate the opportunity correctly. It's a skill to be able to understand, is this going to be a good fit for me? Are they going to get the value out of me? Am I going to get the value out of them? Where do you start when you're looking at either a new opportunity that was expected or unexpected in our careers? We're talking in general, like healthcare, marketing, and digital, like you both said. Like, how do you even start evaluating some of these opportunities that come up?
Yeah, so I think you're exactly right, Jared. The evaluation criteria has changed a lot throughout my career. When I started, I had a plan coming out of college. I was going to be in investment banking and live in New York City, all of that stuff. And then at some point, I decided I wanted to have family, and I couldn't picture doing that in New York City. So I moved back to the Chicago area, and that changed things. And then I found interesting jobs and loved it. And then I started, like I said, then I started to have that family, and suddenly there were other people counting on me. And so the criteria changed. And sometimes I was willing to make some sacrifices for stability, which I thought I was getting in healthcare, and dollars. And after I left Northwestern, I'll be honest, like I had to find the next job. And so I think I convinced myself some opportunities were the right opportunities because they were right there in front of me. And so this time I'm doing a lot more introspection, and I'm really looking for things that I think are going to be good fits. And it's been really great. Like, to me, one of the things is we have built up this really great community in healthcare. So I know a lot of people now, and I talk to a lot of people. And for me, it's great talking to them. And this is not a knock on any of those people. And I'm sure I do it myself, but sometimes it can become an echo chamber, right? Like, you're saying the same things to each other. And so for me, I think it's really helpful to then get beyond that group and have that next layer of people that they know and have conversations with them. And a lot of times people will come back and say, what I'm hearing from you, Scott, is, and they'll come up with some insight that I can't find in myself, right? And so having lots of conversations has been really insightful for me, and also doing a lot of intentional introspection of what is important to me. And so I'm realizing part of my criteria is not like, for me, like the next job doesn't have to necessarily be digital healthcare. It's more about helping people or being able to work across large groups and problem solve. And for me, I don't want to get into like, what am I looking for? Because I know this is an interview about getting a job, but like I've learning, like I might be a better chief of staff than a digital marketer, right? Like, because I like solving problems almost as much as figuring out digital solutions for healthcare. So I think that for me, like doing a lot of introspection, and like you also mentioned, sometimes you kind of know this is going to be a good fit, and sometimes you kind of know it's not going to be a good fit. And so I think two things. One, being honest with yourself going in and not taking that job that you kind of know from day one is not going to be a good fit. And two, recognizing that these are just signals, right? Like you are talking to a recruiter or one person and you're inferring culture from that, right? Or you're inferring what it's all going to be, and having the honesty of being like, all right, I landed here. And sometimes once you've landed, you recognize within a month or two, this is not going to be a good fit, right? And so being honest with yourself about that, and whether that means leaving immediately or starting to look, but like just being honest and picking up on the signals.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and I'm going to oversynthesize what Scott just said, right? But I think it shifts from being about money or security and then shifts to alignment and impact, right? I think the more you grow as a person and in your career, so alignment, ensuring that I can lead in the way that is going to support the people and support the mission and make impact and help the patients, right? Like that's what's meaningful to me. And it's really important to be grounded in that. I find it important as I'm out on my own, right? Because obviously I need revenue. It's not like I have a paycheck coming to me every 2 weeks. But it's important overall to be grounded, because even Jared, to the point that you were making, like sometimes you wind up in places that you shouldn't be if you're not ensuring that kind of you're really aligned, right, with what that path is and what that next role is.
Something that you both mentioned just then is this thought of having people in your path who can pull that insight out of you and kind of be that mirror for you. And when you share with them, hey, this new opportunity is coming up, I think I might take it, whether it's them or you being able to tell yourself, that's not where I would have pictured you. I see your strengths as this, and you rock and roll on those things. That's interesting. It doesn't mean it's bad, but I just wouldn't have seen you there. That type of feedback is very helpful. And when you talk about meaning versus alignment, or being able to understand where those come into play, super important here. Scott, to your point, the community in healthcare marketing, digital is amazing. And I think we can all say we've been blessed with people who share encouragement along the way. I'm wondering what some of those particular things are that you feel along the way during a career transition, both the encouraging and the discouraging aspects, because that helps us just paint a realistic picture. Therese, are there any things that come to mind in terms of the encouraging or discouraging aspects as you're looking at career transitions?
Well, even what you just talked about, like the value that you provide and a transition allowing you to sit back and understand. So what this transition has helped me with, as an example, is really sitting back and looking at how I want to provide value and how I identify who I am and what it is that I provide. So when you're in a health system, the meeting culture is so heavy, like you're constantly in meetings. So I used to identify value with busyness, with being in meetings and having to work 5 hours after meetings end at the end of the day. Now value is very different, right? So I think career transitions allow you to sit back and remember who you are, I guess, as odd as that sounds, or how capable you are and the value that you provide, right? And allows you to maybe wrestle with some of those ways that you identify yourself as that aren't valid or that aren't helpful. The discouraging part of transition is just the unknown, right? The messy middle, the imposter syndrome. But those are also the things that pull you in where you have to ground yourself, right? When you're reinventing yourself, when you're adapting. So I think the discouraging shifts to the encouraging in a way as well, if that makes sense.
I was following this, not shiny ball, but like I liked these kind of jobs. And part of the reason I decided to plant my flag in healthcare was I got to a point in my career where the jobs I thought I should be getting all read 7 to 10 progressive years of experience in this thing. And I'm like, well, if I keep jumping around, I'm never going to have that proof point, right? So I'm going to stick with one industry. Now I'm realizing with tech and just the speed that society is moving at, like there isn't a job that's the same 7 to 10 years from now, right? Like they all are evolving very quickly. So you have to decide, are you going to be someone who evolves with it? And if you are, and that's one of the things that I've decided is I've always been a lifelong learner. I really get excited about new things. I want to pick things that I want to learn about and go learn them. And if you are okay with that, wherever you're at in your career, what's discouraging and encouraging is I feel like I've got all this experience, right? And so that should be really valuable. But the value of my experience in some ways is depreciating faster because things are changing. Business models are changing. Technologies are changing. Platforms are changing, right? But the encouraging part means that you're not behind anybody else, right? Because the half-life of all the skills is shrinking as well. So if you can bring in, this is what I'm trying to give myself, I feel like take heart. You can look at a lot of problems with experience because you've witnessed them in a different manner before and leverage that experience. And then you can be an intentional learner. You can get up the curve on all the technologies and things rather quickly because they're all evolving. So if you can marry those two things up, you're never really behind, right? And you can always reinvent yourself and find that next role that really is what you can be passionate about. And leverage your experience and learn those new skills. So that's kind of been the encouraging part for me. Now, whether or not that's Scott's Pollyanna view of the world, we'll see. But that's how I'm viewing the world these days.
I would agree. And I would say, I think back to some of the advice I've received during career transitions myself. I remember even earlier this year, speaking with a colleague who told me to think really hard, be really realistic about what you want and what fulfills you. And then run like crazy, like never stop running towards that. Like just keep going that direction. That is not an easy thing to do. That is sometimes the biggest challenge is like, I know the things I want to do and they take a lot more selling of people understanding the value of it. So it's been good advice and it's been a North Star for me. And it's been a thing that's helped, for instance, on days when I've thought, is it time to pivot again? There's only so many pivots after a certain point. Therese, is there any good advice that's kind of stuck with you during any career transitions?
This is a simplistic one, but I feel like it's so true, is just to put one foot in front of the other. I think when you can see something and when the vision feels so big and so massive, and maybe even as you mentioned, Jared, right, like so hard to get through, right? Like it's easy to overwhelm yourself. So I think just this concept of, okay, I'm going to take this step today, especially with my ADD brain. I have to remind myself, like, I'm going to do this one thing, right, to move myself forward. And another just quick win that that I got way before healthcare, but which sticks with me, is that being opportunistic smells of lack of strategy. And I try to always keep that in mind too. Like there's so many things you can do, right? But what is your true north? And I think this goes for health systems too, that have so many competing priorities. There's so much they could be doing. Like, how do you stay kind of focused and be putting one foot in front of another? So I pull those two together as, I guess, a little bit of my true north.
This again might be obvious, but being, as someone who's been more of a generalist in their career and tried to have a lot of like wide skill set and all that, being able to empower the person you're talking to imagine what roles you're looking for. So it's great to send them your resume. It's great to send the cover letter, but I also send what I call my value proposition. And it's like, what am I good at? What roles? What would I be good at? What were my skills? What do I want to get out of it? What am I willing to do? Just like really making it in like 3 bullets. Here's all the questions that someone who wants to help you needs to know, right? So when they see opportunities, they can think of you. If you're a staff accountant, it's pretty easy to know what that is, right? But if you're not something that like everybody can conjure up exactly what that is, being able to help the person who wants to help you think of the right way to frame you, I think is valuable. Maybe that should be intuitively obvious, but it took me a job search or two before I knew to do that.
Hey y'all, I'm here with Sina Arham, founder of Friday's Health. Sina, what do you think is broken in the traditional approach to metabolic health, and what are you doing to flip the script?
Let's be honest, the moment in metabolic health is being driven by the GLP-1 receptor agonist class of medications, right? We finally have something that is addressing metabolic health, obesity, and type 2 diabetes in an elegant fashion, right? It's efficacious, it's manageable for patients. And so I think we're having our moment in metabolic health in that the old guard of tackling metabolic health and obesity has a lot of stigma attached to it, a lot of shame and blame and guilt.
Thanks, Sina. Visit joinfridays.com for more information and tell them you heard about it from the Healthcare Wrap. Okay, so this is leading me also to, a lot of our colleagues are currently also in transitions of some kind, or at least considering a change or worried that a change is coming that they're not going to be ready for. And you both pointed to communities before. I'm just curious, what communities in particular, conferences, resources, colleagues that have helped or that you'd recommend, or even other resources that have helped you at various stages, or you just feel like it's something that you enjoy being a part of, or following or consuming as you've gone along.
I don't think I'm going to give you an answer that's like super fulfilling to the listeners, but I think all of the conferences, right, that a lot of us go to, like HMPS, HCIC, SHSMD, HIMSS, all of those things are tremendous opportunities to learn. But I think way more than the learning is the chance to be in person with the people. Because I think a lot of the best parts come from the hallway conversations, the late night conversations, the coffee as you're leaving. And I think there's no replacement for being in person with people. And I don't even think I have to give you a healthcare example. One of the things that somebody did tell me, so we fall into the last question too about advice, is just being out and being present. And like, it can be at your kid's sporting event. It can be at whatever. I have a friend who does curling. He's part of the curling club, right? Locally. And he got his last job from being part of the curling club because he had deep conversations with somebody who wasn't even looking for his next job, but they got to know him. They got to know what he was good at. And when something came up, they were able to think of them. So my advice is just try to be amongst people. And that's not always it's great to be amongst your tribe, but it's also great to try to just be out and gather when you can.
I agree with Scott. I think the conferences are an amazing place to be, and it's because of this community. And even outside of the conferences, like where I have found so much like joy, and I'm an introvert, so it's been such a surprising thing for me, is that just connecting with people one-on-one. If I see someone new is going out on their own, I'll just reach out to them and be like, hey, do you want to jump on a call and talk? Like just the authentic conversations that you can have are energizing, and they just help to keep you connected outside of the conferences as well.
What does leadership look like to both of you in this field as we look ahead? Kind of starting now, if today's day one, somebody's starting in a new leadership role, what's it going to look like for them to succeed, or anything that just kind of stands out to help them as they think about that new role?
First and foremost, and I don't even know if this is because of the period in time, but you've got to be dynamic, right? You have to decide what are the things that I'm going to lead on, what are the things I'm going to trust my team to lead on, and what are the things that I'm going to learn, right? Where am I going to get up the learning curve if this is a new industry for me? Thought maybe we were going to get through the whole call without saying AI, but I guess I'm going to be the one who breaks the...
There you go.
With AI, it's
27 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just changing things so much. So it's very much, you've got to be dynamic. You've got to be ready to see like how that plays out, how that's going to evolve things. What roles look like today are just, I think we're going to be doing more with less. There's going to be more automation of things, more people doing different things, possibly fewer people doing different things. There's one of the leaders that in healthcare, and I don't think it's public yet, that I respect absolutely the most. And I think he's going to be finding himself looking for a job soon. And if you would have told me like, this person is so smart, they can solve any problem. And so sometimes things are just are going to be beyond your control, right? Like sometimes the organization is going to make some decisions that you would disagree with, that they would disagree with, et cetera. So just being dynamic, I think that's like the only thing you can do. That's the only thing that's future proof is being agile and being very intentional about what you're going to own and what you're going to trust your team to own.
That's great advice. Teresa, what do you think?
So I think a couple of things are really important. I mean, I think any leader, and I feel like this sounds simple, but needs to be able to hold a strategic vision, right? Like I think healthcare, I feel like there's been an evolution, right? Where healthcare now has a seat at the table. They're not just looked at as a cost center. Maybe in some places they still are, but I feel like that the landscape is forcing marketing to have a bigger seat at the table and to be able to own that seat and deliver on that seat, right? Like I feel like there needs to be a very sound strategic vision. Patient experience is a critical piece. Like we see that starting to roll up into marketing. Digital fundamentals are non-negotiable, right? Like CRM, marketing automation, those things, like we need to be able to tap them to be able to grow and meet the objectives of the organization. I think building an operational model is going to continue to be critical. So with the technology landscaping evolving, being able to work across aisles is critical. And that's still, I think, something that health systems really struggle with, right? Like IT, ops, clinical, rev cycle, all of them coming together, marketing, to be able to come together and define what the vision is together and then work towards that is going to be a really important piece for leadership, I think, to have a better pulse on. And then creating psychological safety, because sometimes culture struggles in health systems because there is pressure, because there's so many competing priorities, right? People are being pulled in different directions. And sometimes I think that leaderships lose sight of that. And that's such an important piece.
Will health systems have websites in 5 years?
I think they will have health systems. I think health systems have yes, I think they'll have websites. I don't think websites are going to be dead.
Websites are going to have that new audience of agentic AI agents, right? They have to be able to take on those calls, but there's still going to be an audience that is going to stay. There seems to be a point at which people stop adopting new technology. And so there's a cohort of people that have stopped adopting new technology, but have adopted the website. And until that group is no longer, you're going to have a website, right? You have to keep adopting to the new technologies and the new users and the new behaviors that those people have. I think it's really interesting. Like we talk a lot about AI and we talk about like, well, if we have agentic AI, like we won't need a website because you're just going to speak to something and it's going to go off and do it. At some point for me, and maybe this is me starting to not be as dynamic, I still like, if it's complex, I still want to like double check the work and go see it and be like, yeah, okay. So for my healthcare, I book me a COVID shot at CVS. Sure. If I show up and they don't have me, fine, whatever. But like check on my daughter's follow up from her appointment, whatever. Like I'm going to want to see that. I'm going to want to go to a portal or a website and verify that stuff, at least at this point in my life. So 5 years from now, like no brainer. Yes, still a website. 20 years from now, I don't know. Who knows?
The adoption curve is a critical piece of it, right? And I think to the point, just to build, Scott, on what you were noting, right? I think a lot of people are still using ChatGPT as a Google search engine on steroids versus, right? They're using it as a search query versus as this intelligent tool that you can put prompts into and build GPT. So I think it's going to take a long time for people to get to that place where they even know how to use technology in that way, if that makes sense, or use AI in that way.
There are people that are using it in a very simplistic, lazy way. They ask a question once and the answer that it gets back, and they just copy and paste that. And that's suddenly the very lazy version of your homework. And then there's people that are like treating it like a coworker, and they're spending thoughtful time saying, let me explain the situation. Let me give you all of the information. Ask me some questions back to see if you need to clarify anything. And then let me check your work halfway through and tweak. And those people suddenly can become experts in things they're not experts in, right? Or at least semi-expert in, right? And so like, it's still like, to your point, Theresa, it's like all over the board on how people are using it. It's not settled ground.
This has been the exact conversation I was hoping to have with the two of you, so I want to thank you for it. Let's wrap with this question of what gives you hope for the future of healthcare. We've talked a lot about pushing through challenges, having resilience, having direction, having alignment. What does that mean in terms of what keeps you personally interested and hopeful for where healthcare is going from here?
To me, it's the medicine. I think that the breakthroughs are starting to come through fast and furious, and technology and discovery of drugs and procedures and human bio, like stuff that's way over my pay grade, is just accelerating. And so I'm just really excited. Like, I think medicine's getting a lot better. I don't remember who said this, but like the best thing you can do in the next 10 years is not die, because we're so close to breakthroughs. And that's not probably the question you were really asking, which is probably more around like digital healthcare and marketing around healthcare. And for me, I think it's the same answer I would have given you 15 years ago when I got in. We have to solve it. So we're going to solve it. It might be very incremental, but we're going to keep moving forward because we have to.
So I think going back to what we were talking about, even personally, right? How change helps us adapt and how it helps us reinvent ourselves. I think it's the same thing that's happening with health systems right now. There's so much change. There's so much assessment of structure and people. And do we have the right people in the right places and the right skill sets? Because we do have this need. I feel like I say this too much, but that we have to do more with less. And I think through that, there's going to be a period where the way that we look at a team is reinvented, right? There's going to be an ability to adapt to meet the needs in a better way. And I think that gives me hope, because I think where there's change, there's growth, there's opportunity. And I think there's a ton of that right now. And the other piece is that the people, although I said, of course, the pieces around psychological safety and all of that, because healthcare is hard, it's hard. But at the core, the lion's share of people that I've worked with in my career in healthcare are amazing. They have the best intentions. They lead with humility. They lead with kindness. And they want the best thing for their team and for the patients. And that's what gives me hope, because if that's always there, then we're in a good place, I think.
Perfect place for us to wrap up. I want to thank you both for joining, for being as real as you are. I wish you both the best of luck, genuinely, in where you are now, what's coming next. Even better things are around the corner, no doubt. But I love being able to hear how you've been able to navigate your careers up to this point. Super excited for things. Thanks both for joining us today and giving us so much to think about.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you.